Today, we're diving into three of the most terrifying caving incidents you've probably never heard of. Stories where brave explorers found themselves trapped in the most unimaginable ways. We're talking about bodies trapped in angles no human should ever endure, air running out with each passing second, and panic setting in so deep it pushed people to the brink of insanity. These aren't just accidents, they're suffocating, claustrophobic nightmares where one tiny mistake led to disaster. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. On June 2018, 12 young soccer players and their coach decided to do what many do after a regular practice session. They went exploring. But the cave they chose, Tham Luang Non Cave, located in the mountains of northern Thailand, would soon turn from an innocent adventure into a fight for survival that would captivate the world. This cave, famous for its long tunnels and narrow passages, was about to become a tomb. The team, aged between 11 and 16, entered the cave after practice with their coach in tow. It was meant to be a short trip. Little did they know, the monsoon season was in full force, and the rain began to pour down almost immediately. Within hours, the entrance to the cave was completely submerged. A sudden, unexpected monsoon flood trapped the group inside. What started as a casual outing quickly escalated into a life-threatening emergency. With the floodwaters rising fast and the cave's narrow passageways becoming increasingly dangerous, the boys and their coach found themselves trapped with no way out. The hours turned into days, and as the group moved deeper into the cave, the air became thicker and harder to breathe. Their situation was growing worse by the minute. By the time the authorities were alerted to their disappearance, every second counted. The sheer scale of the tragedy was horrifying. The authorities were in the dark about their exact location. The cave was vast and twisted, and it wasn't clear how deep the boys had ventured. As the hours passed, hope started to dwindle. Water levels were rising. The team was trapped with no obvious exit, and the air quality inside the cave was deteriorating fast. It was soon clear that if they weren't found within the next few days, survival would be impossible. The situation caught the attention of the global media. People around the world began to follow the story, glued to their screens as each update brought more concern. As night after night passed, the international community began to realize that this wasn't just a rescue mission. It was a race against time. As news of the boys' disappearance spread, the Thai authorities knew they had to act fast. Soon, an international team of divers, engineers, and rescuers from around the world flooded into northern Thailand, all bringing different skills to the table. The Thai Navy SEALs, along with experts from the US, China, Australia, and the UK, launched what would become one of the largest, most complex rescue operations in history. But the cave's geography made the mission nearly impossible. The narrow passageways were flooded and the air quality inside was dangerously low. Rescue divers had to struggle through waterlogged tunnels and underwater chambers, many of which were barely wide enough to fit through. It wasn't just dangerous, it was life-threatening. The operation faced its first major setback when former Thai Navy SEAL Saman Kunan tragically died. He had been part of the team that was diving in and out of the cave to provide supplies and support. His death was a huge blow to the operation. It was a reminder of just how high the stakes were, and the personal risk everyone was taking to save these boys. The world mourned with Thailand, and the team's resolve was put to the test. Despite this heartbreaking loss, the rescuers pressed on. They came up with a daring plan to sedate the boys in order to get them through the water-filled tunnels. The sedative was crucial. Without it, there was no way they could safely bring the terrified and exhausted children through the underwater passages. But getting them out wouldn't be easy. The plan was risky. A single mistake could cost the children their lives. But the stakes were too high, and there was no other choice. The rescue operation continued for days, but finally, after 18 agonizing days, the entire team, all 12 boys and their coach, were freed from the cave. They had survived against all odds thanks to the relentless dedication of the rescue teams and a miraculous stroke of luck. It was a moment of pure triumph, not just for Thailand, but for the world. People cheered in the streets. Tears were shed. The relief was overwhelming. However, the trauma didn't end with the rescue. Though the boys had made it out alive, their psychological and physical recovery would take time. Many of the kids experienced severe post-traumatic stress after the ordeal. Being trapped for more than 2 weeks in a life-threatening environment can have lasting effects on anyone, let alone a group of young boys. The Thai authorities, along with medical teams, continued to monitor their recovery. As for the coach, who was blamed for taking the boys into the cave, the world was divided on his actions. While some criticized his decisions, others believed he was just as much a victim of the flooding as the children. The Tham Luang rescue was a race against time, but not all cave rescues end in triumph. Up next, the shocking tale of two explorers trapped by the ocean's fury in the hidden caves of Hawaii. What happens when the tide itself becomes your enemy? August 5th, 1997 started out like any perfect Hawaiian morning. Blue skies, warm breezes, the ocean stretching out calm and endless. Timothy Anderson was visiting from the mainland, hungry for a real adventure, something he could brag about when he got back home. A local guide, Wynton Nicholson, had promised him exactly that. A secret spot only locals knew about. A hidden sea cave along the black lava cliffs of the Kona coast. When they reached it, it didn't look dangerous. Just a jagged hole in the cliffside, a mouth yawning open at the water's edge. Waves rolled lazily past, gentle and warm, with only the soft sound of water lapping against the rocks. To Timothy, it felt almost peaceful. But out here, danger doesn't always announce itself. Faraway storms can send rogue waves for hundreds of miles. And sometimes the scariest part is how quiet everything gets, right before it strikes. Inside, the cave felt cool and damp, the walls rough and strange under their fingertips. Tiny crabs scattered over the rocks. The air smelled sharp, like salt and earth. Timothy followed Wynton deeper, slipping along a narrow ledge that twisted farther into the darkness. It felt like a private world, secret, hidden from the world outside. But in the distance, the sea was starting to shift. The first hint came as a sudden drop in sound. The waves outside stopped slapping against the rocks. The breeze that had been blowing through the cave's mouth just died. The whole place held its breath. Wynton stiffened. He recognized the signs, but before he could shout a warning, it happened. A low, deep roaring sound grew from somewhere beyond the cave entrance. Louder, faster, like a freight train barreling toward them. Then a wall of water exploded into the cave. It hit them like a truck. Timothy barely had time to gasp before the force of it lifted him off the ledge and hurled him into the water. He tumbled, scraping against the sharp rocks, spinning helplessly in the darkness. Above him, Wynton grabbed onto a rock ledge with bloodied fingers, fighting not to be ripped away too. But he knew they couldn't stay. Another wave was coming, and this time, the backwash would suck them out into open sea. Thinking fast, Wynton let go. The current caught both of them instantly, dragging them out of the cave's mouth like broken toys. They smashed against the cliff face, skidding over jagged volcanic rock, their skin tearing open in deep scrapes. Timothy's head cracked against a boulder. Stars exploded behind his eyes. He struggled to stay conscious, panic clouding every thought. And then, through blurred vision, he saw it, another massive wave rising high above them, blocking out the sun. Wynton screamed, telling Timothy to dive. Somehow, Timothy's body obeyed. They plunged underwater as the wave roared overhead, slamming into the rocks where they had been just seconds before. When they resurfaced, gasping and coughing, they were closer to shore, but not out of danger. They had been thrown onto a tiny sliver of sand at the base of a vertical 40-foot cliff. Sharp rocks jutted out all around them. The strip of beach was no more than 10 feet wide, a trap that would vanish completely once the tide came in. Timothy wasn't moving much. Blood leaked from a deep cut on his forehead. His skin was pale, his body trembling violently. Wynton crawled to him, heart pounding, and tore strips from his own shirt to press against Timothy's head, trying to slow the bleeding. Minutes crawled by. The sun was already starting to dip lower. The tide was rising. There was no way up the cliff without help. No way to swim back out without being smashed against the rocks again. They were stuck. Wynton shouted until his voice broke, waving his arms at the cliffs above. Nothing, no one. Just the endless roar of waves and the cold slap of the rising tide creeping closer and closer. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably minutes, a miracle, a flash of movement up above. A hiker, picking her way along the cliff edge, spotted them. She screamed, dropped her backpack, and bolted for help. It still took more than 30 minutes for a specialized cliff rescue team to arrive. By then, Timothy was drifting in and out of consciousness. Wynton kept shaking him, talking to him, keeping him awake any way he could. The rescuers rappelled down, battling high winds and slick rock. Timothy was lifted first in a stretcher, his body limp but breathing. Wynton followed, his hands shredded, his legs covered in bloody scrapes. At the hospital, doctors confirmed Timothy had a concussion and severe dehydration, but miraculously, no broken bones. The ocean had given them a beating, but spared their lives. Later, Wynton said if they had been trapped down there just 20 minutes longer, the rising tide would have swallowed the beach, and them along with it. One mistake, 1 minute slower. And this story would have ended very differently. While the Kona Coast survivors made it to safety, some rescues take days, if not longer. Coming up, one of the longest and most grueling cave rescues ever, where a single expert explorer's life hung by a thread deep inside Germany's Riesending Cave. Would they be able to save him before it was too late? The Riesending Cave rescue pushed the limits of human endurance and teamwork, and it took an international effort to pull off the impossible. Deep within the Bavarian Alps, there's a place that's often described as both beautiful and deadly, the Riesending Cave. At over 3,000 feet deep, it's the longest and deepest cave in Germany. For Johann Westhauser, a seasoned cave explorer, this was the ultimate challenge. But what began as a scientific expedition into the heart of the cave turned into one of the most incredible and grueling rescue operations in history. It was June 2014 when Johann and his team of explorers set off into Riesending Cave, aiming to map out some of the more untouched sections of this complex cave system. Known for its narrow passages, vertical drops, and bone-chilling temperatures, the cave was no easy feat. But for Johann, who had decades of experience, it was just another day in the field. Little did he know, however, that a routine trip would take a life-altering turn. Everything went smoothly at first, but things took a dramatic turn when Johann, while navigating a tight passage, was struck by a massive rockfall. One of the rocks hit him in the head, causing a severe injury. His body was pinned and he was unable to move. The team rushed to his aid, but there was a problem. Johann had fallen over 3,000 feet deep into the cave system, and getting him out wouldn't be easy. The cave's insane complexity made the situation even worse. There were narrow, winding passages, steep drops, and freezing temperatures. Every minute counted. Johann was stuck in a location so deep and remote that even the most experienced cave rescuers would struggle to find a way in. It became a race against time. Would Johann survive long enough for help to reach him? Word of Johann's situation spread quickly, and what followed was nothing short of extraordinary. More than 700 rescue workers from Germany, Austria, and Switzerland mobilized to get him out. It was one of the largest cave rescues ever mounted. Teams were sent in from all directions, but getting to Johann wasn't simple. The cave system was like a labyrinth, with narrow passages, steep drops, and numerous obstacles in the way. As the days dragged on, rescuers had to think outside the box. They transported Johann on a stretcher through the impossible terrain, inching their way through narrow tunnels and scaling vertical drops. For Johann, every hour was a struggle. His injury had left him unable to move, and he was losing strength. But the rescue team wasn't about to give up. They were determined, and the longer the rescue took, the more intense the effort became. The logistics of carrying a stretcher through this treacherous cave were unimaginable, but the rescue workers worked together, each step a small victory. Johann's survival depended on their teamwork, but even though the rescuers were making progress, they were also battling against time. The clock was ticking, and Johann's condition was deteriorating. After 11 long, excruciating days, Johann was finally brought to the surface. The rescue was grueling, and everyone involved was mentally and physically drained. But when Johann was lifted from the depths of the cave, there was a collective sigh of relief. Against all odds, Johann had made it out alive. Johann's recovery was miraculous. Despite the severity of his injury, he made a full recovery, even returning to cave exploration. His story became a symbol of survival, and his rescue operation became a case study in cave rescue techniques. It highlighted the importance of careful planning, skillful teamwork, and the unyielding will to survive. Caving is often seen as an exciting challenge, but as these stories demonstrate, it can quickly turn into a deadly nightmare. Whether it's a sudden fall, an unexpected flood, or being trapped in a tiny crevice with no way out, the risks are as real as the thrill. The harrowing tales of the Tham Luang, Kona Coast Sea Cave, and Riesending rescues serve as a reminder of just how unforgiving these dark, hidden worlds can be, and how a single mistake can cost you everything. If you found these rescues shocking, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more stories of tragic caving disasters, catastrophic accidents, and cave rescues. We'd love to hear which story hit you the hardest, or if you've ever had a close call underground yourself. Stay safe, and we'll catch you in the next one.